What would you do if the family you married into told you that you weren't good enough for their world? That's the question I faced last December, staring at my phone in disbelief as the words from my mother-in-law, Eleanor, burned into my mind. Don't come for Christmas, Michael. You don't fit our image. My hands trembled, not from anger, but from the sting of rejection. I'd spent years trying to prove myself to Sarah's family, and in one cold text, they'd reduced me to an outsider. But what they didn't expect was the response I'd send an email that would change everything. I met Sarah 3 years ago at a community art fair. She was radiant, her laughter like music, her eyes bright with dreams. I was just a carpenter with calloused hands and a modest life, but she saw something in me, a spark, she called it. We fell in love fast, married within a year, and built a life in our cozy apartment. Sarah never cared about my background, but her family did. The Hendersons were old money, their world one of manicured estates and exclusive galas. To them, I was a blemish, a man who worked with his hands instead of a trust fund. Eleanor, Sarah's mother, was the gatekeeper of their legacy. I sat on our worn couch, the glow of our small Christmas tree casting shadows. Sarah was at work, unaware of her mother's message. My first instinct was to call Eleanor, to demand an explanation, but words failed me. What could I say to someone who saw me as less than human? Instead, I opened my laptop. If they wanted to judge me, I'd show them who I was, not with anger, but with truth. I began typing an email, addressing it to Eleanor, Sarah's father, and her siblings. My fingers moved steadily, each word deliberate. I didn't beg or accuse. I told my story. I wrote about my childhood, growing up in a small town with a single mom who worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. I described the pride I took in my craft, how every piece of furniture I built carried a piece of my soul. I shared how Sarah's love had given me a home, not just a house, but a place where I belonged. And I admitted the pain of their rejection, how it made me question my worth, but also how it strengthened my resolve to be the man Sarah deserved. Then, I attached a photo, a table I'd spent months crafting for Sarah as a Christmas gift. It was oak, hand-carved with intricate patterns inspired by her favorite flowers. It wasn't just wood. It was a promise, a testament to my love. This is who I am, I wrote. Not your image, but hers. If that's not enough, I'll still be here, loving your daughter, whether you invite me or not. I hit send, my heart pounding. Hours later, Sarah came home, her face pale. Mom called, she said, her voice tight. She read your email. I braced myself, expecting rage, but Sarah's eyes softened. She cried, Michael. She said she didn't realize. She trailed off, wrapping her arms around me. Eleanor had forwarded my email to the family, and for the first time, they saw Minute as a threat to their status, but as a man who loved their daughter fiercely. The next day, Eleanor called. Her voice was stiff, but there was a crack in her usual composure. Come for Christmas, she said. We'd like to meet the man who wrote that email. It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. When we arrived at their sprawling estate, the air was tense. Sarah's siblings were quiet, her father reserved, but Eleanor pulled me aside. That table, she said, her eyes on mine. It's beautiful. I misjudged you. For the first time, I saw something like respect in her gaze. Christmas dinner wasn't perfect. There were awkward silences, guarded glances. But as we sat around the table, which Sarah had insisted we bring, something shifted. We talked, not about wealth or status, but about family, love, and the things that matter. I realized then that my email hadn't just changed their minds. It had reminded them of what family could be. In the end, it wasn't about fitting their image. It was about showing them mine, flawed, earnest, and unapologetically human. And as Sarah squeezed my hand under the table, I knew that no matter what came next, we'd face it together.